Please select destination.
Hello there, and welcome along to sunny Constantinople. Sometimes it's nice just to get above the everyday hubbub and enjoy the view. So the topic of this episode of InGame is not so much a game itself, but an adopted game concept, that of cross-species relationship. Firstly, a word of warning: if you are going to research a subject like cross-species relationships, make sure you add fiction or science fiction to your parameters. I just thought I'd pass that along. This is something which has been around in science fiction and fantasy, in literature, on TV, and in games for a long time. Half-elves, after all, are the progeny of elves and humans, either by design or through trickery by the use of a glamour or some other deceit. That seems to be sort of okay. After all, elves tend to be slightly taller humans with pointy ears and a bit of a superior attitude. Star Trek addressed this topic back in day one with Mr. Spock, the half-Vulcan, half-human science officer of the original series. Again, there wasn't too much of an issue because Vulcans are basically human with pointy ears and a bit of a superior attitude. You know, I'd not noticed that particular linkage before. Vulcan actually Roddenberry's elves. Anyway, the Roddenberry camp hit this topic again with the delicious Deanna Troi, half-human, half-betazoid. But again, we managed to miss out on any tricky questions because betazoids are basically human but with all black irises. Does this mean then that it's okay to do the jiggy-jiggy with another species if they're basically human-looking? As an aside, the Star Trek universe explains the compatibility of these different species by alluding to an earlier race who'd seeded planets with life, thus making the eventual cross-pollination effective and basically okay. Getting back to the is it okay question though, I guess the answer has to be a personal one. What I'd see as okay, others may well balk at. Where I'd not go, others will happily plough their furrow, if you'll forgive the phraseology. Although the concept does exist in other games, either by implication or direct exposure, let's take the most recent well-discussed game environment for cross-coupling, Mass Effect. The interesting thing about this particular universe is much time has been spent on discussion about the same-sex hookups as there has been about the cross-species ones. Maybe it's because the latter is actually more conceptually slippery to grasp, but I'm not sure. Oh, well, that's useful. Where was I? Oh yes, Mass Effect. Let's look at female Shepard and Ashley, for example, or male Shepard and Caden. Those pairings have had as much discussion as has the relationships with Liara, or Tali, or Garrus, or Thane. Yet here we have species which are significantly different to a point where they could actually be toxic to each other, and no offspring could possibly result. The boundaries are there for us to cross, and the decision about who or why is very cleverly left to us, the player. I'd actually be very interested to see what the metrics are for the relationships created across those games, and how many remained faithful from Game 1 through to the end of Game 3. I did, by the way. How do we reach those decisions, though? Are they based on curiosity or otherwise of the unknown? Is it that line that we can cross in-game because it's not one we can even think about in our everyday world? Is it based on the personalities we're presented with? Garrus, for example, is, in personality terms, a bit of a catch. He's loyal and brave, yet at the same time oddly compassionate and has got a vulnerable side about him. However, he's also built out of armoured plates and would strike me as a bit uncomfortable to cuddle. The Asari as a race are probably the most accessible to us, as they are different yet familiar, and generally on the physically attractive side, if female mammalian curves your particular kind of thing, of course. Yes, they're blue and do seem to have some sort of vestigial tentacles going on around the head area, but that's not really the end of the world, is it? Other blue, visually female aliens which can join outside their species are the Delvians, as featured in Farscape. If you've not seen this, by the way, get the DVDs and watch them, seriously. The Delvians are basically plants, evolved. Put her in the light and watch her smile, they say. But they can join with non-Delvians for pleasure and to share experiences. Farscape's another universe where cross-species relationship happen, even where there's no possibility of offspring resulting. Dargo the Lux and Shanna, for example. But it also looks at what happens when races are bred who shouldn't be. The main villain of the piece, Scorpius, is half Scaran and half Sebastian, and actually suffers greatly as a result. Then we've got Sheridan and Delenn in Babylon 5, Jane Foster and Thor, being a demigod after all, Superman and Lois Lane, Tech Sergeant Chen and Jane Doe. Points for a correct guess on that one. And there are many others. The one thing all of these races have in common, though, is that they're humanoid. That is, that they're bipedal, upright, have a head, 2 arms, and torso. Basically, they look like us. Is that all it takes, though? There is another thing they have in common, and that's sentience. One of the relationships on Mass Effect 3 is between Joker, the human pilot of the Normandy, and Edie, the AI running the ship. Of course, things did get physical when she got a body, but the embryo of the relationship was there beforehand. So is sentience the thing? Is it personality and expression before physicality? Let's look at Avatar. The relationship between Jake and Neytiri was between the personalities, not the physicalities. She understood that he was not the Na'vi standing there in front of her, but was rather more than that. My Jake, she says, as she rescues his human form from asphyxiation. Of course, these conceits are created in such a way to allow us to come too close to the line without ever really crossing it. Edie takes on an attractive humanoid form because it makes the crew more comfortable in their interactions with her. I'm sure Joker felt the same, as we did looking in. If she'd taken on a quadrupedal form, then and I'm using the collective here, then our feelings about the relationship may have been a little different, as they would have if any of the love interests had been non-humanoid, I'm sure. I'm going to take us back to the original series of Star Trek, where that galactic Lothario, James T. Kirk, was more than happy to lock lips or anything else with any female or female-looking, attractive alien he came across. But also courted controversy with an interracial kiss between he and Uhura, although in the episode concerned Plato's stepchildren, he was forced to do so through telekinesis. This wasn't the first, by the way. England's Emergency Ward 10 took that on us some 4 years previously, but it's interesting that the kiss between a white man and a black woman got more column inches and remains in our collective psyche longer than the kiss between a white human and a green alien. We've mostly moved beyond that particular prejudice, thankfully, but there are always others ready to rear their heads. Personally, I like Liara's shade of blue, and so does, or rather did, my shepherd, who was tall, blonde and female. Perhaps there are lines and roles that I'll cross, which others wouldn't. Perhaps it's simply fantasy extension. Or perhaps it's about two individuals who work well together, regardless of their shape, colour, gender, or genesis. Perhaps the experiences we have in-game allow us to show a greater flexibility and acceptance in the outside world. Certainly gamers have tended to be, in my experience, far more tolerant and accepting than most. So, on that philosophical note, that's it for now. I hope I'll see you again next time.